Good afternoon and welcome to the Kennedy Space Center and our Hidden Figures panel discussion. Thank you all so much for being here with us. In the 1960s, NASA was on an ambitious journey to the moon, and the human computers portrayed in Hidden Figures helped get us there. Hidden Figures is a 20th Century Fox movie based on actual events. While the film dramatizes some aspects, it is true to the struggles of the women at the center of the story: Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson. The victories for racial and gender rights were not achieved easily or quickly, and our work is not done. Today, NASA strives to make sure their legacy of inclusion and excellence lives on. We must also take a moment to remember the passing of an American hero, John Glenn. Whether you knew John personally or not, you were touched by his grace and character. He is even a part of the fabric of this film. Jim Parsons said, quote, "In many ways, Glenn is the reason we have this movie." Now, we are pleased to be joined by members of the Hidden Figures cast and its producer and director. Please welcome, to my left, Ted Melfi. Ted is the writer and director of Hidden Figures. Octavia Spencer plays Dorothy Vaughan in Hidden Figures. Taraji P. Henson plays Katherine Johnson, Hidden Figures. Janelle Monáe plays Mary Jackson. Pharrell Williams, producer, Hidden Figures. And Bill Berry, NASA historian. Bill, thank you all so much for being here today. How was the tour so far? Great, huh?
Very
amazing, amazing.
I have a question first for you.
Yes.
I know you were quoted as saying that you dedicated this film to everyone in the world who sat through unconscious bias.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about the process.
The process of
making of why you feel that way.
Well, I mean, it's a story, you know. I mean, the movie is about unconscious bias in my mind, right? The movie's about colored bathrooms and colored coffee pots and not getting promotions, not being paid what you're worth, not becoming a supervisor when you're qualified to become a supervisor. That's what the movie, not being able to go to a school to get a degree like Mary Jackson's character, or like Mary Jackson's character having the same degree as a man, but that degree is good for a man to be an engineer, but not good enough for a female to be an engineer. Not putting your name on a report. Katherine Johnson wrote many reports that her name is not on. That's what unconscious bias is for me, and that's what the movie is about. All those things that are not overt per se, but they're very, you know, they permeate every aspect of civil rights and NASA and the struggles this country had back then and the struggles we see today. So.
Ladies, I wanted to ask you, and I know, Taraji, when at the Toronto Film Festival, I read something that said you actually teared up at one point, and that because it was so overwhelming. Can you ladies address that?
Well, I mean, what I mean by that is when I discovered that these incredible women existed, I was saddened because there was a universal understanding when I was coming up that math and science was for boys. So I already had a low expectation of myself when it came to math and science. And when I think back throughout my whole education, I sat in the back of the class in math and science because it wasn't for me. And so I get this script and I read it, and through all the obstacles, they still did these amazing. They were still able to change the course of history. And how come I don't know that? How come we didn't know that? And I became really angry because I felt like a dream had been stolen from me. And so then I remember saying to Ted, I have to do this movie. This movie is so important. I have to do this movie because not one girl should feel like how I felt. I mean, it's just crazy. It's crazy.
What was the question again?
Well,
sorry.
The movie and why this was such the kind of movie you wanted to do.
Oh, well, it's sad, but I when I first heard about it, I thought it was historical fiction. And that says that we weren't heralding the inner workings. We weren't speaking to the minds that got our men to space. And I just knowing the contributions that all of these women made, as well as the white computers who weren't even honored, I wanted to be a part of their telling, the telling of their story.
Janelle?
Yes, this is a part of American history, and an important American history. These are American heroes. And for me, when I read the script and heard about their contributions and learned more about the women, and what NASA did during that era, when they put aside the isms, the sexism, the racism, the classism, when they realized that at the end of the day we all bleed the same color, that's when we achieve the extraordinary. And I just pray that it serves as a reminder of what we can do when we put those things aside and become one living, breathing organism moving forward.
Pharrell, how do you decide when you're thinking about the music for a movie like this? How does it come together?
Well, this one was a bit different for me because I started working on music toward the end of 2014. That was 1960s-esque. And then somewhere in 15, we got the call about the project. And it was like, okay, the universe was sort of tuning my mind to be able to write songs that were going to be bespoke for the film, such as Running and I See a Victory. And while in the process, it's like you think about why songs made it back in those days, and it's because there were so many, walls of adversity and so many barriers for race and for gender and just advancement, period, that when people made music, they called it soul music because the music literally came from their souls, and it had to be able to tear through and cut through all those barriers to make it on the other side to the ears of any race. It just a good song was a good song. So I found myself trying to challenge myself in the way that those writers and producers and singers did back then.
Bill, lastly to you. So, was there a lot of give and take, or were there times where you're talking to Ted, you're going, no, you can't do it that way, Ted. It doesn't work that way.
Well, Ted and I and a number of other folks at NASA helped a lot with providing all sorts of information for things. We talked quite a bit about the script. We went back and forth on a couple different versions of it. There was a lot of great material from Margot Shetterly's book that the movie is based on that really helped a lot. And to me, the great part of being a historian, actually getting to work on something like this, is that the people dedicated to the movie, particularly Ted and the cast and the production team, were so into telling the story and getting it right. And they wanted as much detail and as much accuracy as possible. I was delighted to help them in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank
You made
Now
us
we're going
look
to take
smart.
questions here at Kennedy Space Center. Wait for the mic to get to you, and then name and affiliation, please.
I'm an investigative reporter with the CBS station in Orlando. Thank you all so much for coming here today. My question is, for each of your characters, Octavius, Taraji, and Janelle, what were some of the biggest challenges that your character had as a black woman in NASA during this time that you, playing this character, like really almost took you back? Like, I cannot believe they had to, like, I guess surprised you, but they still managed to, go forward and challenge forward. What would you say for each of them?
Well, I just think, I can't speak for the two ladies, but in my, I just think that I actually had a chance to meet Katherine Johnson. She's still alive. She's 98 years old. And I kept asking her those questions because, I'm a new millennium woman, and we have rights, and, we can speak our minds. And so I kept asking her, like, what was it like? You had all the obstacles stacked against you, and she just said it was what it was. That's how things were. I just went to work every day. And I thought, wow, what a strong approach, because you can always sit and complain about how bad things are, but then what is that accomplishing, Mm-hmm. And so I was like, wow, That's pretty amazing. That's pretty selfless, because obviously what you're doing, even though you're not thinking I'm going to change the world by my actions, but you are. And the fact that these ladies did not complain, they just got up every day and fought the good fight. Now we have a space program.
Yeah, I think that's the most inspiring thing, is knowing that they were able to persevere through those obstacles during a time where laws really prohibited them from achieving their dreams. And my character in particular, Mary Jackson, she believed that everyone deserved a right to the American dream. She believed in equal footing, equal opportunity, not just for herself, but for the rest of the women who worked at NASA. And so when she was fighting, it wasn't just for herself, it was for everyone else who was told that they were not good enough because of their gender or their race. And I just hope that whenever any young girl or anybody sees this film, that they can look to them for hope and inspiration, and know that they'll come out on top and at the end of the day.
And for me, I think when you think of the climate in our country in the 60s, these women didn't have the right to vote at the time that they made these contributions to science, technology, engineering, and math. But they didn't look externally for that validation. They knew that their contributions would be a part of something greater than themselves. So when you think about the fact that racism was the law of the land, segregation kept us separated from our white counterparts, and it didn't change their minds that they were able, what they were able to contribute. But it's definitely, it was pervasive, and it's something that you have to keep in mind when you do a period film. Like Taraji said, you know, as modern day women, we have agency that they did not have. And it's what we do with that now that's important. And being a part of this film with two wonderful actresses that I admire, and then having Kevin Costner, Jim Parsons, Kirsten Dunst, Mahershala Ali, Aldous Hodge, that amazing cast, and then all the wonderful talent behind the scenes. People weren't signing on to get $1 million paychecks. They signed on because they believe in this story, and it deeply affected all of us, and hopefully it will have a lasting impact to the next generation of young girls of color in STEM.
Down here in front, and then Ken will come to you.
Hi, this is a question. Robin Simango with the Observer Media. A question for Taraji, Octavia, and Janelle. Did you see any comparisons in your own roles as African-American women in Hollywood vying for roles that may not be available? See any comparisons in yourselves and the characters that you play?
Yeah.
Yeah, the struggle is there. The struggle is real. But again, what I learned from Katherine is you don't complain. I can sit here and say, oh, they didn't pay me enough for this role, or I didn't get this role or that role, or. But what am I going to do? What is that helping, you know? So even in an industry, I really can't sit here and say Hollywood hasn't been good to me. I've been working. Have they written enough zeros on my check? That's the question. But that's not the question you ask me, because I don't write the checks, you know. But yeah, Hollywood has been good to me. I don't complain. I just do the work, and you know, I look up one day I'm nominated for an Oscar. I look up one day I have a Golden Globe. I look up one day, and you know, so you just do the work, and all that other stuff comes. I'm pretty sure Katherine or none of these women thought they were going to NASA to change the world. They were just excited to have a job in the field that they studied in school. That was just a blessing for them. So just to go to work every day. But see, they were prepared, and when opportunity meets preparation, you can change the course of history. So if you stay focused on your purpose, then you don't worry about all the accolades, because that will come. People will notice work. When you do good work, it goes, you cannot unnotice it. You cannot not notice it. Just like this story, we couldn't keep this story quiet forever. It was bound to be told because the work that they did, these women did, was just that amazing.
Yeah. I think that these women did not really think about race or gender until someone else made it a big issue. And then after it started to get in the way of them pursuing their dreams and their goals, that's when they had to stand up for themselves. And again, I think these women are selfless, were selfless because they were not just doing it for them to be happy, but for everyone, their communities to be proud, and for the women working with them to also have those same opportunities. And I think in my real life, I've tried to do that. I've tried to make sure that I'm speaking out whenever an injustice is done. I believe that an injustice done to my sister is an injustice done to me. And I think that these women took that approach, and whenever they had the opportunities like Dorothy's character to bring everyone along with them, they made that decision. They stood firmly in that and, did not, think selfishly about it. They were servants of staying on and fighting for what's right. And I think we all do that in our personal lives as well.
And I would just add, I think both of these ladies spoke eloquently about the issues at hand. But gender parity in the workplace is still an issue. We are fortunate to be in entertainment, and we're afforded a certain comfort. But when you go out into different industries, women should be paid as their male counterparts. They're doing the same job. And one thing I would really like to credit NASA for is being progressive in their approach, because they didn't have to open the doors to minorities in the 60s, but they did. They didn't have to allow women in positions of power throughout the years, but they have, and they've been very inclusive. And I think they should be, other industries should look to that sort of thinking, because we all have something to contribute. And if anything, I always loved John Glenn. It was before our time that all of this, happened. But the thing that struck me most is that he made a decision to put his life in the hands of an African-American woman. That was not a popular decision at the time. And if you can do that, put aside your differences and believe in a person based on what they can contribute and how they contribute it, mankind, we will go beyond the stars again.
Go ahead, Ken.
Hi, Ken Kramer, Universe Today, Northeast Astronomy Forum. For each of the actresses and Pharrell, I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about the research you yourselves did into each of these women. What did you learn? How did that help you portray the women that you portrayed? And what research did you do to try and come up with some topical music? Thank you.
You want to start us off, Pharrell?
Yeah.
Okay. I think from the very beginning, from the onset, for me, being from Hampton Roads, Virginia, I was born 11 years after 1962. I was born in 73. And I grew up with that music in my atmosphere. That was a part of my environment. That was my life. And then there was when we I reached out to Hans Zimmer to work on the score, which he pulled me right back into it. And we also worked with Ben Wallfish. And I think what we did is our first objective was to make sure that we had a score that did not sound like you would expect it to. So when you think about films, their heroic moments or their sad moments or, their devastating moments, there's usually a set of chords or chord progressions that will be very Anglo and Euro leaning. And we thought, well, look, this is the 1960s. This is the 1960s Matrix, where the gravity and the physics was much heavier on African Americans and twice as hard on African American women. So we needed to give those considerations real breathing room in our work. And so we found ourselves trying to make music that we felt like would resonate with women and would definitely reflect that gallant time that those African American women lived through and endured. You know, they, as Ted wrote, you know, they saw beyond the numbers. They actually saw beyond the era. Yeah. And that math went on to help John Glenn in his orbit, you know, 3 times in 5 hours, and so on and so forth. And so we needed to give that consideration, that I know this is taking very long, but that we were trying to connect to what it must have been like for people who saw beyond their conditions and were never wavered. Yeah. You know, because there was something in them that was just a little different than you and I. Yeah. And that was mainly our focus, you know, that and just staying away from what you expect and giving you something that paralleled what you were going to see on screen. Okay, cool.
Yeah, amazing. They did a phenomenal job. In terms of character research, sadly, there was not a lot of information around my character, and I know Dorothy, because both of our brilliant women, unfortunately, have passed on, and we didn't get the opportunity to speak with them, and not a lot of their family. But we did have the opportunity to speak with Margot Lee Shetterly's father, who worked here at NASA with the ladies, and I learned so many incredible things about Miss Mary Jackson. We didn't get the opportunity, and that's like a whole nother story film, but after she became the first African-American female engineer, and she was just wanting to be an engineer because she knew she had the mind. She had such a broad worldview, and she saw beyond her circumstances and just wanted to work and do what made her happy. But after she achieved that victorious win, she hacked into the NASA computers, and she discovered that women and minorities were being paid significantly less than the white male counterparts. She presented this information to NASA along with a few other of her colleagues, and she helped advance the careers of more women and minorities at NASA, and challenged NASA too. And they, of course, were progressive. They listened to treat them fairly. So that right there, just such an honor to be portraying this woman.
We have about 5 minutes left. I want to grab a quick call on the phone bridge. Robert Perlman from Collect Space, and then I'll come back for a couple of final questions here before we wrap it up. Robert?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. For Ted Melfi and anyone on the panel who would like to answer, in her book, Margot Lee Shetterly talks about how she was mindful that while she was writing about the untold history of these hidden figures, that she also had to be careful about not creating new myths in the process. So how conscious were you while creating the film about what you were depicting on screen, whether it be historically accurate or fictionalized for the purpose of telling the larger story, that what you showed for many in the public, including many children, would become accepted as what exactly happened?
Well, I say this all the time, but the movie's not a documentary. I mean, there's a great documentary NASA has done with the Discovery Channel called When We Left Earth, which is an exact depiction of the Mercury program at that time. For the most part, we were painfully aware and very careful with how we portrayed the three women and the things that they accomplished. There are direct quotes in the movie. John Glenn's direct quote is, "Get the girl to run the numbers. If she says they're good to go." She then goes and does those numbers. Those calculations for John Glenn took 3 days. We can't do that in the movie. So she's, even though she's a math genius, she's not that math of a genius. So yes, it took her 25 seconds in the film. Those calculations took 3 days. Mary Jackson petitioned a court in Virginia and became and got approval to go to an all-white school, and got that degree and became NASA's first African-American aeronautical engineer. Dorothy Vaughan became NASA's first supervisor. These things are all facts. The space race is obviously pretty much verbatim, factually and chronologically. There are little liberties taken here and there to dramatize. So, but the crux of the story is true.
Try to get a last couple quick.
Go
ahead.
have a question. So, is this like live, like C-SPAN, NASA channel style right now?
Yeah.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
We're gonna boldly go in about 2 minutes.
Okay,
So.
I just had to like
Way to go.
live. Sorry.
Christy Zizzo. I'm a digital media producer for News 13 in Orlando, Florida. You spoke about how upset you were that you didn't think that girls could do math. There was a recent video on the Hidden Figures website where you talked about the fact that that you don't have parades for mathematicians, Mr. Melfi said. This is something that we could use more of in Hollywood when we're talking about inspiring not just girls but boys to pursue STEM careers. Do you see this as a way of maybe getting more game players in Hollywood to make these kinds of movies?
That's what I hope. That's my hope, because this movie is so new. It's so fresh. We've never heard this story before. It's not the 5,000 ways to play JFK. I love JFK. We know his story. We know the man before he became president. You know what I mean? This is just a new, fresh story, and I just hope it leaves Hollywood with a hunger and a thirst to discover more unheard of stories, because if this story exists, it's one of a million. Mm-hmm. So I just hope this movie hits, because that's what Hollywood pays attention. Oh, it's making money? Right. Let's find some more stories we don't know about, So that's what I honestly hope that's what happens.
Yes, let's make more films about smart black people. I know that sounds crazy. I know that sounds crazy.
Jack Warner of Warner Brothers, one of the original founders of Warner Brothers, said movies have to educate, enlighten, and entertain. Mm-hmm. And lately, we've just been entertaining. But you have to educate and you have to enlighten people. You have to raise the human. What?
We'll talk later. That's how I choose movies. If they educate, enlighten, and entertain. I didn't know somebody else.
You
thought
heard
that
in
yeah,
my
and
quote.
so that's what we're. Yeah.
My last interview.
That's what Hidden Figures is about, and spread the word, because money talks, and your ticket sales matter, and that's when people go see a movie, and that's when they make more of them.
December 25th, right? Select theaters, January 6th, worldwide.
Yeah.
Final quick question, and then we're going to wrap it and boldly go.
Where no man has gone
Exactly.
before.
Quick question for Pharrell. I'm Michael Phillips with weatherboy.com. Who do you find inspirational today as relates to science and technology fields?
Myself?
Yourself.
Dava, who runs JPL, she's another level. She's also a female. Oh, I'm so sorry. All right. Okay. Dava, who runs JPL. She's amazing. Also, Elon Musk. Mm-hmm. I feel like he is a savior for this mission in a lot of ways. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 4 years with the space program, but there are private organizations like his that are definitely going to go, and no one can necessarily stop that. As we lose our EPA and all these other things. I'm very excited about these individuals that recognize the importance of space, just like these 3 African-American female protagonists in the 1960s. They recognized that math was going to be integral to make advancement in space. And we all know any advancement in space is advancement for our species. Mm-hmm. So we need more people like that. Yeah. And I think Elon is kind of like, because think about it. He has SpaceX, he has Tesla, and he has Solar City. Yes, I want to be a part of your organization and, would like to talk to you about some stocks too. Yes. So we can all boldly go where no man has gone before.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for attending this one-of-a-kind press event here at the Kennedy Space Center. Thank you to Ted Melfi, Octavia Spencer, Taraji Henson, Janelle Monáe, Pharrell Williams,
live
and Bill
on
Barrett.
cable, live on cable, right now.
Thank you all.
Wait, you didn't say.
Yeah, he did.
I did.
Oh, I was just talking.
You were talking.
Sorry. Live on cable right now, you know what I'm saying? We're live.
It's going to go viral.
It's okay.